So my research focuses on inflation forecasting from the viewpoint of commodity futures markets. You can think of the futures contract as an agreement between two parties to lock the price today for buying or selling an asset in the future. So an inflation futures contract is an exchange-traded futures contract written on the inflation rate, which is used by the market participants to hedge the risks associated with the volatility in the inflation rate. However, the attempts of issuing inflation futures in the past remained unsuccessful, and therefore the inflation futures are not available anymore. So given that the market participants are still exposed to the short-term inflation risk, we propose an approach to tackle the non-availability of the exchange-traded inflation-linked derivatives by introducing the expected artificial consumer price index. The consumer price index is a decomposition of many items. So an inspection of the commodity futures markets indicates that most of the items in the CPI are actually commodities on which active futures are traded. So collecting these futures contracts and then averaging them in the same way as the CPI is decomposed will create synthetic futures on the consumer price index, that is, the expected artificial CPI. So specifically, based on the first column of the relative importance of components in the CPI in this table, we first decompose the US CPI to locate these commodities on which futures contracts are traded. And next, by looking at the second column of this table, we determine the optimum weight for each commodity. And finally, we multiply the commodity futures prices with the corresponding optimal weights and then sum them together to construct the expected artificial CPI. And the key result is presented in the following table. So by using the term structure of the expected artificial CPI, we calculate the projection of the inflation forecast from the May 2016 to March 2017. It can be seen that the inflation forecast from the commodity futures markets tracks closely to the inflation forecast from the Bank of England. And furthermore, the term structure of inflation futures actually construct an inflation futures contracts. And these inflation futures contracts helps tackle the non-availability of the exchange-traded inflation-linked derivatives, and therefore enables the market participants to hedge the inflation risks. Thank you.